My name is Rick Halverson, and at 3:07 a.m. on the 14th floor of a Honolulu hotel, my Stepson kicked my door until it burst inward. Then my wife stepped into the splinters and whispered like I was the problem. Just give him what he wants. For a second, I couldn't move. Not because I was scared of Evan. Evan Mercer was 28 and loud, not tough, but because the sound of that door breaking did something inside me. It wasn't just wood. It was a line, a boundary. One I'd spent years trying to keep straight in a marriage that always wanted to bend. The hallway outside was dead quiet in that special hotel way. Carpeted silence, soft air conditioning, the distant hum of an elevator somewhere. Then Eban filled it with his drunk breath and rage. "I want that room now." He shouted like he owned the whole floor. He wore board shorts and a cheap black tank top, the kind you buy at a tourist shop. His eyes were red. His hair stuck up like he'd been sleeping, but I knew he hadn't. I could smell the bar on him. Beer something sugary and that sharp bite of tequila. The kind of smell that crawls into your nose and tells you trouble is already here. Linda stood behind him barefoot in a robe, her hair pulled into a messy knot. Her face was pinched, tired, annoyed. Annoyed at me, not him. "Rick," she said, using that tone she saved for when she wanted something from me without looking like she wanted it. "Don't make this worse. Just switch rooms." He's upset. Upset, like a grown man kicking down a door at 30 in the morning was a mood swing. I stared at her and she didn't meet my eyes. She stared at the broken latch like she was already deciding how to explain it to the front desk. Evan pointed past me into my room at the king bed by the window. The curtains were half open. Outside Honolulu glowed streetlights, moving dots of cars, the black line of the ocean in the distance. It was supposed to be romantic. It looked like a postcard. In that moment, it looked like a stage set for a humiliation. "That one," Evan said. "That's the room I'm taking." "This is our room," I said, and my voice sounded strange to me too. Calm, too flat, like I was listening to myself from across the room. Evan's mouth twisted. Not anymore. Linda finally looked at me, and her eyes had that familiar mix of pressure and pity, the look that said, "Be the bigger man, be the adult. Pay the price so we can all go back to pretending." "Rick," she said again, softer, almost pleading, "you know he's been having a hard time. Don't be selfish over a bed." Selfish. That word landed like a slap because it wasn't about a bed. It was about everything I'd been swallowing for years. The tickets, the rent. Evan couldn't cover the temporary loans that never came back. The way Linda could always find a reason Evan's behavior wasn't really his fault. And somehow I was always the one expected to absorb it. I didn't answer. I just stood there in my teach, shirt and pajama shorts with the cool air hitting my legs, feeling the floor steady under my feet while everything else shifted. Behind Evans, someone opened a door down the hall. A man's head popped out, eyes narrowed, then disappeared again. I heard a latch click. Nobody wanted to be involved. I looked at the broken door frame. The wood was split clean where the latch had been. A sliver of oak dangled like a loose tooth. The hinge creaked under the pressure of the door, hanging wrong, and without meaning to my brain, did what it always did. It started sorting the scene like a file. Damage, liability, a forced entry, not a simple noise complaint. If security got called, they'd write an incident report. They'd note who was registered to the room. They'd check cameras. They always check cameras. I'd spent 30 years reading the fine print of accidents people swore weren't their fault. I'd audited claims from hurricanes and kitchen fires and slip and falls in grocery store aisles. People could cry and yell all they wanted. The paperwork didn't care. I walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, and pulled out my little black notebook. It wasn't big. It fit in my jacket pocket. I'd carried something like it since the 80s, back when my first boss taught me the value of writing things down the moment they happened. I clicked my Parker pen, an old silver one my father gave me when I got promoted, and wrote. 3:07 a.m. Evan kicked door in, demanded room, Linda present. Evan blinked at me. "What are you doing?" "Remembering," I said. Linda's brows pulled together. "Rick, don't do that. Come on, she always hated when I got quiet like that. When I got procedural, she liked emotions she could steer. My silence was a wall she couldn't climb." Evan stepped forward, chest puffed out. "Move, I'm taking it." I looked at him for a long second. I thought about grabbing him by the collar and shoving him back into the hallway. I thought about raising my voice. letting the whole floor hear how ridiculous this was. I thought about how satisfying it would feel for maybe 10 seconds. And then I thought about the cameras. I thought about how quickly a man my age becomes the villain in someone else's story if there's no proof. I thought about how Linda would twist it later, how she'd say I lost it, how Evan would claim I came at him, and how the truth would get fuzzy the moment it had to pass through their mouths. I stepped back, not because I was giving in, because I was stepping out. Fine, I said. Evan's face lit up with smug relief like he'd won something, like he'd always believed he would. Linda let out a breath like I'd finally behaved. Thank you, she said, and she meant it. She meant thank you for not forcing her to choose in the moment. She meant thank you for making it easier for her. I didn't reply. I walked to the closet and pulled my suitcase out from under the hanging shirts. I moved slowly, deliberately. I folded my clothes with neat corners the way my mother taught me. I packed my belt, my toothbrush, my shaving kit. Ivan shoved past me into the room and flopped onto the bed like a teenager claiming the couch. He kicked off his flip-flops and laughed to himself. I could hear the ocean in the distance when the AC cycled down a faint rush behind the city noise. I could also hear my heartbeat steady and hard like it had something to prove. Linda hovered in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me pack. She didn't offer to help. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look embarrassed. You're being dramatic, she said like she couldn't stand the quiet. It's one night. One night? I repeated, and my voice stayed level. Sir. I zipped the suitcase, picked it up, and walked past her into the hall. The carpet under my bare feet felt rougher out there, like it wasn't meant for skin. The hallway lights were dim yellowish, set low to keep things calm. The calm felt insulting. Linda followed me 2 steps. Where are you going? I turned to face her. Evan was already laughing in the room behind her, muttering something about finally. I wanted to say 100 things. I wanted to tell her I'd spent years being the adult in a house that kept rewarding childish cruelty. I wanted to tell her that a man can only bend so many times before he stays bent. Instead, I said somewhere with a lock. Her mouth fell open. For a second, I saw real offense in her eyes. Not guilt, not worry. Offense like I'd insulted her, not like she just watched her son break into our room. Rick, she started. I didn't wait for the rest. I walked toward the elevator with my suitcase rolling behind me, the broken door still yawning open like a wound back there. The elevator arrived with a soft ding. The door slid open. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, Linda's face was the last thing I saw standing in the hall, wrapped in a robe, looking at me like I just embarrassed her in public. The elevator descended smoothly, floor numbers ticking down. 14, 13, 12. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, a text from Linda. Don't do anything stupid. I stared at those words. I hadn't even done anything yet. But I knew in that quiet drop toward the lobby that I was done paying for other people's peace. And I also knew something else, something colder and clearer than anger. When you kick down a door, you don't get to decide what happens next.